Anyone who works out hard or trains intensely with weight training sooner or later encounters what they call the burn. This is the burning effect in muscles that you feel after completing a highly intense or difficult set. And you get this intense burning sensation in the muscle, which basically signals that the set is over because the pain becomes too intense to continue. Most bodybuilders associate that burn with hard training. They feel like they've done something, and they somehow often associate the burn with increased muscle pump. There is no real relation, however. But I just wanted to talk. I've spoken in recent videos about how to control this acid effect. The acid effect that occurs, or this increased acidity that occurs in the muscle, is the result of a situation involving anaerobic metabolism, which involves, I don't want to get into too much detail, and it involves the production of energy without involving a lot of oxygen, and it leads to kind of more or less a dead end that results in the production of what they call hydrogen ions in muscle, or lactic acid is a more simple term. However, the lactic acid dissociates where the lactate portion is separated from the acid portion, and the acid portion consists of hydrogen ions. The lactate portion is actually very good for you, which I will talk about in a future issue of my Applied Metabolics newsletter. Lactate is not bad stuff. It's actually a fuel used by the body. It can be converted in the liver into glucose. Again, that's a completely different story. I'll explain that in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. Hydrogen ions are another story altogether. They are associated with muscle fatigue. The purpose of many popular ergogenic aids, which I've mentioned in past videos, such as sodium bicarbonate or baking soda and beta-alanine, is to control this acidity, because as the hydrogen ions build up in muscle, it tends to interfere with the activity of energy producing enzymes that produce ATP. So basically, the muscle is not getting the proper, let's say, energy fuel, and it kind of shuts down. So hydrogen ions are associated with fatigue. So since I've discussed those other buffers, but briefly, sodium bicarbonate is an extracellular buffer. As lactic acid kind of leaks, it kind of tends to pull lactic acid out of the muscle into the blood. And once in the blood, the biocarb acts on the acid to produce carbonic acid, and thus it neutralizes the hydrogen ions, so to speak. It's a complicated process. I'm not going to get into it here. Carnosine, which is a product of beta-alanine and histidine, is the intracellular buffer that helps to lower the acidity in muscle. So sodium bicarbonate works outside the muscle. Carnosine works inside the muscle. But today I want to talk about something completely different, and that's, do alkaline diets actually help you train harder? Now, based on what I just said, it would seem that consuming an alkaline diet, which would tend to offset acidity, should increase training performance, more energy, less muscle fatigue. And another thing to consider is that high protein diets tend to be very acid forming. And this is because some of the amino acids, particularly the sulfur-containing amino acids like cysteine and methionine, they tend to increase the acid load of the body. So it just makes it, common sense dictates that if you offset the high acidity feature of a high protein diet by consuming alkaline-based foods, theoretically you should lower the acidity everywhere, including muscle, and then have better workouts. Unfortunately, this is not what the studies have shown. And the reason for this is that the body has a pretty efficient buffer system. The buffer system consists of the proteins that I just mentioned in muscle, the natural production of sodium bicarbonate in the kidneys, and also the respiratory. There's just breathing. You breathe out. Your respiratory process increases under high acid conditions in the blood. So you tend to breathe out more carbon dioxide, which lowers blood acidity level. Also, your kidneys under high acid conditions, in other words, if your higher acidity level is detected in the blood, your kidneys respond by producing ammonia, which combines with the hydrogen ions, and it causes them to be excreted. So you have all these systems that basically keep your pH or your acid acidity, acid alkalinity level, can't even pronounce alkalinity level. It keeps it within a narrow range. 7 is neutral, so your blood usually is in a range of about 7.4, which is ideal. My point is, all these systems kick in to keep your blood within a certain acidity range where it never gets out of control. And this is why consuming these let's say high alkaline diets or drinking alkaline water is not going to make much of a difference unless you're in a pathological state. For example, if you have heart disease, kidney disease, where your body's not producing enough of the correct buffers, it'd be a very good idea to try to lower your acidity level by increasing the intake of alkaline foods. What are alkaline foods? Basically, foods such as fruit and vegetables that are high in potassium, and they contain other substances which tend to neutralize acid. There's another thing to consider, however, even if the high alkaline diet, for example, increasing fruits and vegetables, even if it doesn't, help you train harder, it does other things. For example, as I pointed out in a in-depth article that appeared in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, where I discussed the acid alkaline situation, I explained that among other things, I mentioned that when you're in a consistently high acid level in your body, you tend to kind of like veer towards a catabolic state, especially when you get older. In other words, having a high body acidity level tends to cause the body to break down protein, and it also activates the primary muscle catabolic system, the ubiquitin proteasome system in muscle, which also stimulates protein breakdown. Having a little bit higher acid level in the body also stimulates through indirect pathways production of cortisol, which also breaks down protein. So again, this is more of a problem when you get, let's say, past 40, 50 years of age, where your body, let's say, production of natural buffers cannot keep up with the acid load of your diet. For example, if you're on a high protein diet. So it's very important as you get older to make sure that if you're on a high protein diet, you want to balance it out with a couple of servings a day of fruits and vegetables. That will help to preserve muscle. In fact, studies with older people have actually shown that they're able to preserve muscle. They lose much less muscle if they increase their intake of fruits and vegetables. So that's basically it for now. So the take home point here is that supplemental buffers such as sodium bicarb and beta-alanine, because of its effect in producing carnosine, they can be definite aids when you're working out really hard. However, trying to eat a alkaline-based diet in an effort to, let's say, lower the acidity produced in muscle when you train is not going to do much. It's good for you. Don't get me wrong. You always want to consume fruits and vegetables anyway. But in other words, if you're doing it to lower muscle acidity levels and allow you to train harder, you're not going to get much benefit from that at all. As I said, I had a tremendous in-depth article explaining all the nuances of this acid alkaline controversy, alkaline water, all that stuff. I covered that in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. I also cover nutrition in general, food supplements. I cover anti-aging, fat loss research, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy. All of these are covered in depth every month in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, 40 to 50 pages a month, no ads, pure information, no BS. You won't find this level of information anywhere on the internet and not in magazines, anywhere except my Applied Metabolics newsletter. So subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. And if you want the best friend you'll ever have in your life, go to your nearest shelter, adopt a dog. They give their lives to you. They live for you. There's nothing like dogs. They're the greatest creatures on earth. Thank you for listening.